we now move on to our Seattle Mariners, who, like you said, had kind of a mixed bag week.
Yeah, I mean, so you play the New York Yankees, who for the longest time had the best record in all of baseball. That has since changed. But I mean, this is still a big series. You're playing one of the best teams in the American League. It's the Yankees. There's that sort of rivalry there. You'd like to beat the Yankees. You'd always like to beat the Yankees. So we look at this series. It was a 3-game set, starting on August 8th versus the Yankees, a 9-4 loss. So unfortunately, come out there and really kind of get stomped by the Yankees. Right, play of the game for that one. Right fielder Mitch Haniger, 3 hits, 2 runs, and an RBI. So Mitch continues to produce after coming off of the injured list on the 9th of the month versus the Yankees. This was the game of the year candidate. A 1-0 win in 13 innings. Play of the game, starting pitcher Luis Castillo. Castillo making his home debut for the Mariners. 8 innings pitched, 3 hits allowed, no runs whatsoever, 2 walks, and 7 strikeouts. So I will talk about this game really quickly. This was pretty wild. This is a Tuesday in August against the Yankees. This is a pretty good crowd. I think we hit at least 35K for each day. So pretty good crowd. Most of them stayed for all 13 innings that this game ran. And we got a comment on the article about the game. It was like, oh, how can it's a 1-0 game? How can it be exciting?
Oh my gosh, are you kidding me?
Yeah. I'll just, we go through it. I mean, it was a great pitching duel. Garrett Cole last week against the Mariners got roughed up pretty bad in that game. I mean, 3 home runs in the first inning against him. Comes out in this game, and I mean, also, obviously, you see it was a 1-0 game in 13 innings. Garrett Cole pitched a shutout to an extent, had a great game. Luis Castillo had a great game and got out of some jams. There were some wild double plays. The Yankees had terrible base running where you were like, you could have probably had a run here and there, and your base running was horrible. There were some great plays in the outfield. I mean, Sam Haggerty made a great catch. There was excitement throughout the night.
Mm-hmm.
This was a big thing. And then of all people, Luis Torrens hits a walk-off single to end the game as a pinch hitter. He'd come in, and Luis is a tough year. It's a tough year. Last year, he showed some pop. This year, that's kind of been non-existent. I mean, he had a home run last week against the Angels, but outside of that, just having a really rough go of things, and he walks it off. So that was really cool to see. This game ended like at midnight, which I think the run time was like 4 hours and 10 minutes. It was wild. It was pretty wild. It was one of the best games I've seen live. That was pretty ridiculous. And then they got to come back and play a day game the next game.
Yeah.
And the Mariners would win that one on the 10th versus the Yankees 4-3. So another tight one to take the series against the Yankees. It's the first time that the Mariners have won the entire season series against New York since 2002.
Really?
So 20 years.
That's awesome.
And before we'll get to the next series in a second, but you would have liked to have built off of this, right? I mean, it's a really big series against the Yankees. You won 4-3. Carlos Santana, our player of the game there, DHing, 1 hit, 1 run, 2 RBIs, hits a go-ahead homer. Again, it's like all of the homers he's hit here in Seattle have been with the game tied or to put the Mariners ahead, which is pretty ridiculous. But yeah, so they take the series against the Yankees, and then they play the Rangers down in Texas for the first 3 games of a 9-game road trip over 11 days, all against your own division. And you drop a pretty big dud. So August 12th at the Rangers, a 6-2 win. You start off the series nice. You think, oh, this is great. Julio Rodriguez is back. He gets his first game off of the IL. He's our player of the game there with 2 hits, 2 RBIs, and a walk. His first game back from the 10-day injured list. August 13th at the Rangers in game 2, a 7-4 loss. So you kind of fall apart. Texas really puts out a good showing. Player of the game, third baseman Eugenio Suarez, 1 hit, 1 run, 2 RBIs. Gino, an RBI earlier in the game, and a solo homer. Marco Gonzalez gets roughed up. And then August 14th at the Rangers, a 5-3 loss. So you lose the series against the Rangers, who today actually fired their manager.
Wow.
So you lose a series to a team that the next day they fire their manager. Not good.
Yeah, not good.
Player of the game in that one, right fielder Mitch Haniger, 1 hit, 1 RBI, and a walk. So you lose the series against the Rangers. And it's not panic mode for me. I'm not like, oh, the sky is falling. But you can't do that. You can't afford to do that. You're we'll get to it in standings, but you're a half game behind Toronto for the number 1 wildcard spot. And if you get the number 1 wildcard spot, you host 3 wildcard games. You host, which you would like to do, right, in front of that building, which would be packed. It would be packed. Or you take the 2 or the 3 and you have to travel anywhere. And I know this team can win on the road, but
not ideal.
You'd like to control your own destiny and play it in your own building, especially with the energy they can bring in there when they're packed. Disappointing. I mean, Marco has had a rough 2 months. Logan Gilbert, who started that August 14th game, has also, his last few starts have been rough.
Yeah.
And from what I've been seeing, people are saying he looks tired. Maybe they need to give him a break. Maybe skip a day, skip a start. We'll see. I don't know if they'll go with that, but for the longest time this year, we've talked about the rotation, right? And a couple of those guys now are falling off. Luis has a great game in there. Robert was pretty solid in his start. But Logan and Marco led this team in quality starts for a long time. Logan was having a great sophomore year. Both of those guys are really, they need to kind of have a little, exactly. Hit that switch again. So, or you win a series against the Yankees, you lose a series against the Rangers. Mixed bag. We go to player of the week, and Bel went with Luis Castillo, which I understand. I mean, he was pretty electric in the start that he had with those 8 innings pitched, 3 hits, allowed, no runs. What was the thought process behind this? Was it mainly just to know that you've got a guy like this in your rotation, or do you have
see the
anything
performance
else?
that he had against the Yankees and like in a home debut? It was a perfect home debut. So just couldn't go with anyone else here because, like you said, to have someone in that rotation, it's exciting, and he'll be pitching tonight, right? So we get to see him again tonight. Yeah. So I couldn't not go with Luis after that. Again, facing off against the Yankees, having 8 innings pitched and it going to 13 innings. And it was just exciting to watch inning after inning. And it wasn't just Luis Castillo. It was the guys that came after him too. I forget who came.
I believe it was
Matt
Brash was in there, Paul Sewald, Andres Munoz. I think Diego Castillo was in there. Yeah. But your bullpen, I think Matt Festa was in there too.
Matt Festa was, yeah.
So your bullpen continues to be amazing.
Yeah. So
but you still got to get, like we just said with those 2 other guys. But I mean, Luis, I mean, that was, and the interesting thing was, I think it was like the 3rd time for him playing the Yankees in the last 20 days, which, all these sports are games of adjustments, right? And you would think these lineups would adjust, but I mean, Luis was able to overcome that and just avoid that. So that was pretty impressive and exciting to watch him pitch. And the fans gave him a pretty stirring roar when he was announced, and it was pretty fun. So I went with Sam Haggerty. It wasn't the biggest numbers for him in 15 plate appearances: 5 hits, 1 run, 1 homer, 4 RBIs, 8 total bases, 3 walks, a stolen base, a 333 batting average, a 421 on base percentage, a 533 slugging. Those last 2 numbers combined to make a 954 OPS. I went with Haggerty just because I'll admit, last year, even I think 2020, I was not big on Sam Haggerty. I thought this is a guy that's fast. They throw him in a lot of positions, but he can't do much. Didn't hit well, really. I know he was fast. He was like a base runner. I wasn't a fan. This year, since being called up, I believe at the end of the month of June, has really showed out. I mean, not only, his bat, I mean, in that last Yankees game of the series, he had a home run to break up Nestor Cortez's no-hitter, hit it off the foul pole, got people pretty excited. In that win the night before, the 1-0 win, in extra innings, he was intentionally walked twice. Twice. I think the only guy that's ever happened to is like Aaron Judge.
Right.
And those are 2 very different players, so his WRC plus is great. He has pretty plus defense out in the field, can play multiple positions. He's played in the infield this year, played in the outfield mostly, and he's a great base runner. He's a fast guy. I mean, he's played his way onto this roster at the big leagues, and you find hard reason to send him to Tacoma.
Yeah, it feels deserved, his position for sure. Yeah. Yeah,
and at this point, when you continue to, I mean, even against these games against the Rangers, I've seen him produce. So it's like, okay, we have to find ways to get you involved. When you play like that, yes, you're going to have your guys that keep their spots, like Julio. No one's taking center field from Julio Rodriguez. You're going to find ways to get Sam Haggerty in the lineup.
Yeah.
So
agreed.
Swaggerty forever. We look at injury news and roster-related things. On the 9th, as we had the injury news, the team placed left-handed pitcher Ryan Borucki on the 15-day IL with a left flexor strain. On the 11th, center fielder Julio Rodriguez was reinstated from the injured list, as well as catcher Curt Casale. On the 13th, the team reinstated outfielder Taylor Trammell from the 10-day IL, immediately optioning him to AAA Tacoma. So, I mean, some good returns there, but obviously Borucki being sent on the IL, hope that strain isn't a big deal. In team-related news, on the 9th, the team recalled left-handed pitcher Brendan Bernardino from AAA Tacoma as a response move to that Borucki injured list move. Mm-hmm. On the 11th, with Julio coming back and with Curt Casale being reinstated from the IL, some more roster moves were made. Outfielder Jared Kelenic was optioned to AAA Tacoma. And I'll say this really quickly about Jared. I know, he struggled in his time here. He hit a home run off of Garrett Cole in that one game, but he played largely against the Astros and the Yankees.
Tough teams.
That was who he was playing against mostly. It's difficult. Again, this guy is 23. I'm not hitting the panic button on him, but he got a tough slate here. Granted, he could have been, there are things he could have done better, but I'm not saying that, I really hope by the end of the year maybe he makes, when the rosters expand here soon, I believe in September, I hope there is a spot for him at some point. But, I'm not letting the ship sail on him yet. Anyway, also as a roster move on the 11th, Luis Torrens was designated for assignment. So, yes, a few days after he wins the game in that thrilling game, he was designated for assignment. But don't worry, Luis comes back. We'll get to that in a second. On the 12th, relief pitcher Ken Giles was designated for assignment, dropping the 40-man roster down to 38 people. This was a surprise to some. I wasn't really surprised. He just hasn't been able to stay healthy the last few years, and when he was in, he struggled. So, I mean, in the rest of your bullpen's been playing great anyway. Mm-hmm. So it's like you don't really necessarily need him. You don't need to bank on him.
Right.
Also on the 12th, the win against the Rangers, the first one of the series on the 12th of the month, was Scott Servais' 500th win as a manager. The same thing, I just talked about Haggerty, and I had my regrets about him. Early on, I did not think Scott Servais was going to be your long-term manager for this ball club. I questioned a lot of decisions. I said, I don't know if this is a guy that you want when the rebuild hits its peak and you get to the playoffs finally. I don't know if you want this guy to right the ship as a contender.
Have you changed your mind?
Oh, yeah. I changed my mind like halfway through last year. I was like, the guys really seem to respond to him. He seems to be a player's coach kind of thing. And his bullpen management for the large part of the last 2 years has been outstanding. So, yes, I apologize, Scott. I apologize, Sam Haggerty. I was wrong. That's going to be part of the business, right? You're going to be wrong in this business. On the 14th of the month, Luis Torrens he cleared waivers, and he's been right at a AAA Tacoma. So Luis is back. Don't worry about that. I think people have bad years. People have down years, right? So maybe Luis has had a down year. Maybe he just needs to go down to Tacoma and get things straightened out. But with that being said, with Tacoma, you've got a lot of major league talent down in Tacoma. When Kelenic's down there, Trammell's down there, Torrens is going to be down there.
Right.
It's pretty cool. I hope the Rainiers have a good year. And then also on the 14th, relief pitcher Ken Giles declined his outright assignment and elected free agency. So best of luck to Ken out in free agency. Heading over to league-related notes on the 12th, San Diego Padres star Fernando Tatis Jr. was busted, has been suspended 80 games for performance-enhancing drugs. He tested positive for clostebol and will miss the remainder of this season, as well as the first 33 games of the 2023 season. Now, his mother posted a photo and said that he was using this drug to treat ringworm.
Yeah, he said the same thing, and he said that he should have done his due diligence and looking into the medication and what was in the medication. Mm-hmm. Yeah, but that's what he said too, and denied that obviously that it was anything malicious.
Yeah, so I don't know. It's really interesting. I know a lot of his teammates were like, "Oh, he needs to grow up." This. I was like, "Oh boy." I mean, you got a team now with the Padres. Made some big trades at the trade deadline. They got Juan Soto out there, and the outfield, Manny Machado's having a pretty solid year. I don't know. That's really interesting. And it's interesting. Yeah, it's tough. I mean, if he was trying to treat ringworm and he used that drug, yeah, you kind of like, we'll get to this later on in a different segment, but you have to do your due diligence on some of these things.
Is there anything that he can do now to be like, look, I had ringworm and this was actually prescribed?
I think he's already accepted it. I think he's like, all right.
That seems even weirder to me.
Not my business. Also on the 12th, Rays pitcher Drew Rasmussen took a perfect game bid to the 9th inning. It would be broken up by the Orioles' Jorge Mateo with a leadoff double. So Felix Hernandez, to this day, actually, today is the anniversary. Felix Hernandez having the last perfect game in all of baseball. So a happy Felix Day to you, and long live the king. I hope that stands forever. That would be great.
That would be so cool.
It was a tweet, though, that was like, would you trade someone getting a perfect game so that it's not Felix anymore if the Mariners made the World Series? Of course you would take that goddamn trade. It's also, it was saying if the Mariners make the playoffs, they should have Felix in the organization somehow so he can be here for this, because Felix deserves that.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Regardless, happy Felix Day to you, and long live the king. We look at our record and standings for the Mariners here. They sit at a 62-win, 54-loss record, still second in the AL West. That probably won't change for a while. They sit currently at second in the wild card, a half game behind Toronto for the first wild card spot, but only a half game ahead of the Tampa Bay Rays for the third wild card spot. So you really have to start taking care of business against these bad teams you're going to be playing. As we look at some of these air quotes bad teams, I don't want to have to bite my words. You'll play a 3-game set against the Angels down in Anaheim starting today at 6:38 p.m. August 16th against the Angels is also a 6:38 p.m. game. August 17th, the Wednesday game, is a 1:07 p.m. game to wrap up the series. The team then gets a day off before they play the Oakland Athletics just up the road with a 6:40 p.m. start on the 19th. The 20th is a 4:15 start, and the 21st is a 1:07 p.m. start before another day off, and then a return home to T-Mobile Park.